It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutts. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague, who's never received a blank MRI from the Jets. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
As far as I know, anyway. Say my MR results will always come back with something on them. So, one up on the Jets.
I sometimes we have a close friend who's a Jets fan. I support Washington, and I sometimes amazed that a team, while Washington are in the state they are, can say hold my beer, but the New York Jets seem to do that. They are just as they may be better on the field slightly, possibly. I think we will find out because we play them. But off the field, they challenge us blow for blow, shot for shot.
But at least their fans turn up.
Yeah, and their stadium also is in the middle of nowhere. So to be fair, accurate.
But not
all
theirs.
The Washington fans are at the moment watching baseball, I think. So there we go. At a sport where the owner and the team care about them.
It's been a long 5 years waiting for meaningful baseball to watch, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Usual fare, Neil. Week 8, if you can believe it. Reaching the halfway point. Although if we don't say that to Mark Sessler, he'll get mad because it's nowhere near the halfway point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
To steal the joke as well, of course, if Bon Jovi's this excited about being halfway there, imagine what kind of state he's going to be when he gets there.
Exactly. We are going to plug into the mains momentarily, discuss a few items that we believe are relevant this week. Then we're going to dive headlong into fantasy darling and loser, and then our teams of the week. Neil, are you ready?
I was born ready.
No, I don't actually believe that, but okay. Plugging into the mains, Neil. As it's near the halfway point, I thought it was a good time to look at the MVP race because it's completely and utterly irrelevant to anything, but also is excellent stuff for fake talking heads like us. So I guess, Neil, the top 4, I would assume in some order for most people would be, because obviously you can't have defensive players, it's not allowed.
No.
Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson, Dairy Sanders, which we will only use once. We're talking about Christian McCaffrey, obviously, and Aaron Rodgers, who thrust himself into the MVP debate this week. I'm not sure he's in the MVP debate given the first few weeks, but there we go. I was in a group message. I'm going to just call people out, where they were almost suggesting that, like, wasn't it good that the Packers were back in the news? I'm thinking they've been out the news for like a week.
Yeah,
it's been
a rough 2 years.
In the UK, I think they covered more than the Cowboys. But there you go. Maybe that's just me. So, Neil, who would be your MVP so far in the season?
Well, my MVP going into week 7 would have been hands down Russell Wilson, but then he had a poor game because, as we've discussed in the past, Seattle operate their offense pretty much like the Eagles do, in the sense that they rely on their quarterback to be perfect and give him absolutely no margin for error. And Russell wasn't perfect against the Ravens, so he had an off day and he couldn't propel them to the win. However, the quarterback on the other side, who, again, as a passer, had a bad day, but the weather was typically Seattle-like in Seattle, as it's wont to be, but still continues to be electrifying on the ground. So, as we stand now, I would say my MVP is probably Lamar Jackson. I would then be Russell Wilson. And then I think it's a long drop-off because you're not giving it to Christian McCaffrey, just as good as he's been, because he's a running back. And let's be honest, this award goes to quarterbacks. And Aaron Rodgers
in a world where it doesn't go to defensive players, there's absolutely no way. It would go to a running back.
No, and I say of the 4, I think then Aaron Rodgers is another distance back because he's only really been exceptional in 2 games, and one of them they lost.
True.
And the one that he was exceptional in, it was against the Oakland Raiders. Let's cool our jets a tad here. Yes, he was excellent, first 158.3 passer rating of his career. It was the Raiders.
I think it's an interesting concept, right? What I mean by that is it's such, especially at this time of the season, it's such a week to week proposition that, as you said, someone who has a 68 completion rate with 15 touchdowns and one interception is seen as, because he got beat last week by Lamar Jackson, is now not the MVP. Okay, he wasn't great. I think that's fine. I think it's not difficult to say he wasn't, but it wasn't. The completion percentage was down and 48% and whatever. I just look and think, okay, it's one bad game and he lost, and I think that doesn't help. It's a narrative-based conversation, and as you said, I think this week Lamar Jackson stole the narrative, which is fine, right? I think Lamar Jackson was excellent in the game and he won the game, and I'm a bit nervous to say, that puts him into the conversation because he only threw for 140 yards and he's a quarterback. Now, I like Lamar Jackson. He's, helping me do well in my dynasty league, but I'm not too sure. So I'm still going to go Russell Wilson, I think, and just, assume that he's going to have. I think the thing as well for Wilson, I think he's going to have a lot more meaningful games, right?
Yeah, I think so, especially because I think if the Seahawks win the NFC West, then Russell Wilson will be worthy of the MVP because they're in a division with an unbeaten team, and the team that played in the Super Bowl last year with an offensive genius calling the plays and an improving Arizona Cardinals. Let's not bury the lead entirely here. It's a competitive division, so if Russell Wilson can lead the Seahawks to win that division, then you could argue, you probably are the most valuable player. The AFC South, the AFC North, it's taking a nap, shall we say? It appears to be, apart from the Ravens.
Well, that's it. I think they're already 2.5 games up. A 5-2. That's not an AFC North division that we recognise or haven't for years anyway. So I think that the meaningful game allows, even if Russell Wilson team wins 10 games and they are the wildcard team, I think it makes it a lot easier than say if the Ravens do a similar thing and win the North. I don't think winning the North is as big as being a wildcard team in a division where, as you said, the worst team is the Cardinals, who have 3 wins already. Yeah,
I think it's one of those, for Lamar, I think he needs to get close to 4,000 yards passing and break the QB rushing record because of how poor the division is. I think to genuinely maintain his position in the MVP race, he needs now he's passed the eye test, as it were. He now needs to put up the numbers as a rusher and a passer because they're going to piss the division.
Agreed. Let's move on to Coach of the Year, Neil. Right now, I guess top 3 contenders: Sean Payton. With top 4 contenders: Sean Payton, Frank Reich, Kyle Shanahan, and obviously Bill Belichick. Given the fact that the answer is Bill Belichick, but he won't win, who do you think is Coach of the Year front runner?
Well, one of those coaches has been able to design an offense around their quarterback, who there are still question marks about, even though in his regular season career he's 14-2 as a starter.
Crazy.
There's another coach who's had to rejig his offense because he lost his quarterback to injury, so he's found a way to keep it afloat and waiting for him to come back. Only one of these coaches had his quarterback retire a week before the season started and has been able to raise the game of the quarterback he has. And not only that, but keep the organisation together and make them look not competitive. Not competitive in there's always they're plucky, they've got a slugger's chance. No, they are probably the most complete team in their division. So for me, it's Frank Reich, and even with Bill Belichick.
Why I'm going to say it's Frank Reich? Why I am going to pick Frank Reich is that I said that Frank Reich would win the Coach of the Year at the start of the year, given the fact that I thought his team could still win the division, and he was 14-1. So I think it's a really good one because, yeah, I'm going to pick him because that makes sense because that's what I said would happen. I think Sean Payton's done a fantastic job with Teddy Bridgewater. I think, okay, he's 14-2 as a starter, but, he's been on the, horrific injury and other items. He hasn't really played 2.5, 3 years nearly. So to get him to come back and play, first of all, just well enough to win the game and starting to play really well is something that they should be very proud of, right? And I think that's something they should look at in relation to in relation to who was the other one we were talking about who's lost his quarterback? Oh, I've gone blank.
Peyton.
Peyton's lost his. And Reich's lost his, and who else had lost him we were mentioning? I can't remember.
No one. We had Shanahan, who's designed his offense.
Shanahan, sorry, yeah. And I think Kyle won't get the love this year for that. I just don't. When you look at Peyton and Reich, I just don't think he gets the love. I think, as I said, I think the answer is always Bill Belichick. I think the stat I heard today on the Patriots was, if the Patriots didn't have an offense this year, I know that sounds a bit weird. What I mean by that is that if they'd never ran a play on offense and all they just ran the plays on defense, they'd be 3-3-1.
That is staggering. One thing that did stagger me, though, just listening to the commentary of the games last week, was how surprised Chris Myers sounded that Kyle Shanahan was creative in designing a running game. Have you been watching football for 20 years, my dickhead? Seriously, where did this come from? Shanahan can't run the ball? Is it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember the idea that you could put any guy on the street and the Denver backfield and they'd rush for 1,500 yards. That was pretty much because of the scheme.
But I do think, though, that in that situation, people, rightly or wrongly, think that's a Mike thing. And when they've seen Kyle's offense hasn't really done that. And what I mean by that is they just think of Atlanta. I think he's all right at scheming offense for runners. When you look at what they did with Robert Griffin in Washington that first year, I think that went okay.
Yeah. With Freddie Morris, who was, let's be honest, an honest pro if ever there was one, but a world beater, probably not.
But he was a world beater in that Shanahan offense, wasn't he? As they all turn out to be. Neil, in the date was August the 29th. The show was Waxing Lyrical Predictions Bound to Go Wrong. In said show, I said that one of the teams that won 10 games this year last year wouldn't make the playoffs, at least one, if not two. Two of those teams, just for those who are interested, are the Chargers and the Eagles right now, so looking okay. But that's not what I want to... That I'm going to say, we're not doing the Philly talk. We got rid of the wrong coach discussion right now, Neil. That's for another day and a few more beers later.
I do just think, I will say, I don't think it's a question of they got rid of the wrong coach. I think it's a question of
both.
We didn't. It was a case of, okay, he's gone. You'll do.
Yeah, of course.
Well, how about interviewing some outside candidates as opposed to the person who coordinated the St. Louis Rams offense under Jeff Fisher? Just a thought. Maybe that's not the way I really want Carson Wentz to be operating. Just a thought.
Just a thought. But we're not talking about the Eagles, Neil. What I said in that show was that in... let's get the exact wording, Neil, because that's how I roll. Where is it? Here it is.
It's great audio.
It's great audio, this, isn't it? Week 16, Bengals at Dolphins would be the game that decided the number one draft pick. Boy, am I looking right, as those two teams... Well, one is deliberately trying to lose. And how they haven't benched Ryan Fitzpatrick for his attempts to win in recent weeks goes beyond the pale. And the Bengals are... they're not good. They make the
Eagles look fleet of foot, because my God, they are slow. There is no pace in that offense at all.
Yeah, they are too bad. There is some bad teams in this league, and those two are at the moment number 1 and number 2.
Do you know, it was weird because Fitzpatrick had the rushing touchdown against Buffalo at the weekend where he literally,
Tried to kill himself.
Ryan Fitzpatrick has always thought he was more athletic than he is, but it just as he did that, as he ran in and nearly got his head taken off. I just wonder. I can't remember who was on comms, but surely the phrase "Fitzpatrick, you mad bastard" had to have been, close to their lips.
Yeah.
Just like, this isn't just I'm fighting to get this touchdown. This was I'm fighting to get decapitated. It was like, Ryan, for the love of God, man, for someone who went to Harvard, you put that head awfully, into an awful lot of dangerous situations.
Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard. Why did no one tell me this? How have I only just found this out?
I hate to bother you, but apparently I've heard a rumour that Antonio Gates and Jimmy Graham used to play basketball as well.
Well, this is news. Neil. I may have to take a break to think about what's going on.
Galaxy brain stuff, this.
Exactly. They are plugged into the mains. We are now going to go deep into fantasy. And Neil's going to tell you in week 8 who we think is the absolute dreamboat, darling lover that you should pick in your team.
Hello, darling.
Interesting segue. But
thank you.
For me this week, you can call it a reverse jinx, you can call it what I want, but John Smokey Brown is very, very fast. He's very, shifty, likes a double move, and he's playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, again, we saw last week that we didn't think, under no circumstances did we think that Buffalo were going to blow the Miami Dolphins out. And in the end, I've never ever seen an onside kick return for a touchdown. That was incredible. But the Bills, it didn't happen against the Cowboys because, why would it? It's only logical. They've been stiff against the run until they came up against Ezekiel Elliott. With the best will in the world, Frank Gore and Devin Singletary are not Ezekiel Elliott. So I think maybe they're going to ask Josh Allen to beat the Eagles. Well, if John Brown can get behind one of the phalanx of Eagles cornerbacks who are slow, old, or injured, take your pick. Or maybe they're not even turning up for meetings. I don't know. Then, John Brown is someone who, he's had a good season when he's been healthy. It's a decent link up. And, if you're after just a big play, he's someone who, he has a wide receiver 3 floor every week, and he could flirt with wide receiver 2 numbers this week.
Excellent, Neil. You talked about the Eagles secondary, so let's get on to a gang of losers and tell me who your fancy loser is this week.
See, the New England Patriots, the last time they went 16-0, they did it on the back of an incredible record-setting offense. I think this year they're intending to go 16-0 on the back of an incredible record-breaking defense. Now, we know that the Cleveland Browns have not been good this season. They've had a bye, so we don't know, they may have tidied up a few things. But based on what they've done so far in terms of shutting down passing offenses, I really don't like Odell Beckham or any pass catcher really on the Browns this week, but especially Odell Beckham. I think, he's going to get the Stephon Gilmore treatment, which we've seen so far has been, it's been a killer for opposition wide receivers, especially their number ones. Beckham has been something of a disappointment this season. He did clear 100 yards against the Seahawks, but that was not the Legion of Boom Seahawks, and this is not a cornerback team that you want to trifle with. Now, bear in mind, that where you drafted Beckham and how much is available on the waiver wire, i.e. not much, you're probably not going to be starting. You're probably not going to be able to drop Beckham this week, but you're going to have to make sure that you're spot on with the rest of your lineup because there's a good chance he could offer you absolutely diddly.
Neil, diddly. You said diddly, totally bamboozled me. So let's move on and let's give our daily fantasy teams of the week.
Mainz and Dutts, daily fantasy team of the week.
Show me the money.
Neil, who's your quarterback this week?
My quarterback this week, I think I've had him a couple of times before already, it's Kyler Murray. The Cardinals are away at the New Orleans Saints. The Saints obviously have a very good defence, but because they have such a good defence, that may mean that Arizona are in catch-up mode. So that means there'll be plenty of passing opportunities for Murray. And if there's passing opportunities for him, there's opportunities for him to scramble as well and use his legs. He's 6,200.
So, Neil, my quarterback is 5,900 and was Teddy Bridgewater. The issue with that is as we are on the show, Sean Payton has just come out and said that Drew Brees is practicing this week and is now a game time decision, which I was not expecting. I was expecting them to give him another week, if not 2 off. Because I don't necessarily think they need him this week
No, they've got
against
to
the Arizona Cardinals, but maybe that's just me. He's 5,900. I technically had 200 left, so if that's the case, I would go with Matthew Stafford, 6,100. He's playing the New York Giants. They flat out stink. And as you would say, Neil, where is your God now, Gettleman?
See, I love Matthew Stafford, and I think he's been excellent this season. The offense has been tailored to his skill set, which we didn't really think Darrell Beth was capable of. But if you throw 4 touchdown passes to Marvin Jones and only target Kenny Golladay twice in a game again, Matthew, you and I are going to fall out.
You don't need to tell me. I lost my fantasy game in that one, as the guy had Marvin Jones and I had Kenny Golladay, and I'm like, I think I'd missed the first couple of minutes of the game, and then I'm come back to it and I'm like, is Golladay injured? Did I miss something here? No, I didn't. Just Matthew was being a dick.
A few weeks ago, Denny Carter, friend of the show, he tweeted at Yahoo Sports saying that there was a problem with his. It was during a Sunday. He said, "There's a problem with my fancy app. As it appears, Mike Evans has 0 points." And they did send actually back a serious reply. Obviously, some social media intern and whatnot said, what app and operating system are you using? And he sent back, it's the operating system where Mike Evans retired before the start of the game.
Neil, who's your running back 1?
Running back 1 is Derry Sanders, 9,200. The San Francisco 49ers, as we know, have been excellent against running backs. They've not allowed a 100-yard rusher. They've not allowed a rushing touchdown. But Christian McCaffrey is more than just a runner. It obviously offers excellent value in the receiving game as well. So, as good as the defense has been, if you are an MVP candidate, go out and prove it against the best.
So you picked a running back because he can catch. I'm going to pick a running back because he can run. My running back 1 is 7,800, and that is Mr. Leonard Fournette, who's playing the New York Jets, who aren't very good, who are basically praying that their coach gets fired.
They're not alone.
And they're not alone. No, there's a lot of people who want that too, and we know some of them. And he's going to do a lot of running. Now, Gardner Minshew has been excellent. I think there's no doubt about that. But when he's been at his best, it's because Leonard Fournette ran for 120 plus yards in a game. I expect the same this week.
It'd be nice if he could overcome this end zone allergy he apparently has.
Yeah.
As he's racking up all these yards, he's getting all the receptions, he's doing all the carrying in the backfield. But when it comes to the paint, he's just not about that life.
Yeah, we could. If less of that, please. Who's running back 2, Neil?
Leonard Fournette, Jacksonville Jaguars at the New York Jets. Oh, sorry, the New York Jets at the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah.
So yes, that is 9,200 on one running back and 7,800 on the other.
I look forward to the rest of your team. My running back 2 is a guy who probably is the best rookie this year, but won't win Rookie of the Year, and that's Josh Jacobs. All that rest he got in Alabama is working out really well for the Oakland Raiders, as he's been fantastic. He's 5,800 and he's playing the Houston Texans. And I've got a sneaky feeling the Oakland Raiders might cause an upset.
He had one run against the Packers that was literally a, no, go down. No, you will go down. Oh, for the love of God, will you go down? He just kept rolling. It was a joy. It was a joy to watch.
Neil, who's your wide receiver 1?
Wide receiver 1, 5,900 is John Smoke Brown. The Eagles at Buffalo.
My wide receiver 1 is Tyler Lockett. He's 7,000, and right now they are playing the Atlanta Falcons, and I think we should start playing games on, which defense is worse. We've discussed the Eagles, we've discussed the Bengals, but I don't think we should sleep on how bad the Atlanta Falcons are on defense.
I think it's got the state with the Falcons that if you are talking about the worst defense in the NFL, it's almost betting without the Falcons, because they are absolutely pathetic. And it's as I say, it comes down to that. Your head coach is a defensive genius, apparently. Well, this is shite. And you invested all these picks, you spent all this money on this defense, and it's shite. So if you don't believe the players are that good, then you pick the players. That's on Dimitrov. But if you can't coach them properly, that's on you, especially as you keep firing all your coordinators.
And an issue for them is that they that at next year, 17% of their cap will be taken by two players. One is Matt Ryan and one is Julio Jones. Both excellent players, but that means you've got no money on anyone else, and your team is garbage.
Especially, Austin Hooper's a free agent at the end of the season, so he's looked very good, but obviously can't afford to pay him.
No, absolutely.
So I just wonder whether they're looking to maybe trade him to a team who have got the space, who will say we'll take him for a rental now because we can negotiate a contract with him.
Absolutely. Neil, who's your wide receiver 2?
I've gone for DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett's running mate. I say Seattle playing the Falcons. Metcalf does a few things, but he does them quite competently. He runs very fast in a straight line. He's been just missing on a few big plays. Well, I think as Mark Schofield, friend of the show again, said on the the Kirsten Schofield show on BGN, that the best quarterback in the NFL this season. So your MVP this season has been generic Atlanta Falcons opposing quarterback. Because they complete all their passes, they hit loads of yards, they throw for loads of touchdowns, and as I say, Russell Wilson's an MVP candidate. You've got no pass rush, you've got no secondary. DK's going to run past them, and Russell's going to hit them.
Yeah, good call, Neil. My wide receiver 2 is John Smokey Brown, 5,900. As Neil has mentioned, he is playing the Philadelphia Eagles. As me and Neil have resurrected a pitcher in recent weeks. When I say me and Neil, I mean me. And that is burnt toast. We haven't used it for a while. It's come back as there's a lot of plays where the Philadelphia Eagles look like burnt toast. He's 5,900. I don't expect him to get many plays, but he'll probably get 2, which are over the top of the defense, and Josh Allen will throw it to him and he'll catch it. Who's your wide receiver 3, Neil?
Wide receiver 3 is another speedy downfield threat, so making up my trio of wide receivers. That's Kenny Stills. Now, Will Fuller gave us that magical week a few weeks ago, and had the week after that where he was the almost fancy MVP of the week, and then last week I think he played 3 minutes before his hamstrings went. Can't trust him. Kenny Stills, as we know, has been, by any advanced metrics you care to look at over the last few years, one of the most efficient wide receivers in the NFL, despite being essentially a downfield threat. And so he's going to step into the Will Fuller role. That means targets down the field. We saw last week that the Raiders defense got torched on downfield throws by Aaron Rodgers. Deshaun Watson, he's someone who's probably, if he's a good run of form away from being in the MVP discussion, I think. And also it's great just hearing him break down defenses after it. So I think Kenny Stills, he's not going to get loads of targets. I don't think he's going to get like a 16 target game that Will Fuller had the other week. But if he can make the most of what he's got, he should return value on his $4,700 salary.
My wide receiver 3 is Chris Godwin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Why Mike Evans' app is broken on Yahoo is because of this man. For whatever reason, Bruce Arians and Jameis Winston like him better than Mike Evans at the moment. They're playing the Tennessee Titans, who I'm not sure about what the Titans are doing. And okay, you won a game, but it was a standard game for me. It's what usually happens at the end of every single red zone. The 7 hours of commercial-free television, which ends up with Phil Rivers running around aimlessly trying to win the game in the last minute.
Those Titans uniforms, by the way, as well. That
Gross.
was not a good mix. God equals win. So,
who is your tight end, Neil?
my tight end is Dallas Goedert. He's 2,800. Now, he is obviously the backup, not backup, he's the second tight end on the Eagles behind Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz has done nothing of late, whereas Dallas Goedert has played at least 59% of the offensive snaps in 4 consecutive games. He has had, I think he's had a touchdown in 2 of those games as well, and he's averaged more than 11% of the team's targets over the last 3 games. The Eagles, as we know, have no wide receivers of note. Do you remember a few years ago, Don McNabb threw a long rainbow pass that Todd Pinkston lost in the lights?
Yep.
Yeah.
Alshon Jeffrey.
Nelson Aguilar. What he did...
The short arms.
Yeah. Is, quite frankly, one of the worst bits of wide receiver play I've ever seen. And I'm so happy that the Eagles are paying $9.4 million for that kind of production. So the Eagles have had to rely on their tight ends. I say Zach Ertz hasn't done an awful lot. I think he's reverting back to he's basically Jason Witten with a yard. Whereas Dallas Goedert is, he's a yak monster. If he gets to the ball, he's going to go for a lot of yards after it. The Bills haven't allowed much in the way of fancy production to tight ends this season, but that's because teams aren't bothering to use their tight ends against them. I think they haven't allowed more than 5 tight end targets in a game in any of their last 5. So for 2,800, he's basically, it's a wide receiver 2 situation. But as JJ Zacharyson pointed out, if Zach Ertz should have to miss time or get injured or whatnot, then Dallas Goedert steps into a tight end 1 situation on an offense that is feeding their tight ends. So for 2,800, I like that.
Good idea, Neil. My tight end is TJ Hawkinson of the Detroit Lions, playing the New York Football Jets. He's had 5 targets and multiple receptions in his last 3 games. I listened to the Fantasy Football Show on the Ringer podcast network. One of them is a Giants fan, and they have a running joke, which is, Danny, tell me about the Giants defense, and Danny will say, what defense? I think that pretty much sums up the Giants defense. So I'm going to take Hawkinson at 3,500. Who's your flex, Neil?
Flex is Sony Michel, running back for the New England Patriots, playing the Cleveland Browns. He's ridiculously touchdown dependent because he's not involved in the passing game. He usually gets about 15 carries a game, but doesn't seem to do a great deal with them. He just gets what he's given, but he does seem to like scoring touchdowns. The Browns have been particularly bad against running backs this season. Now, the Patriots have added Mohamed Sanu. They still have Julian Edelman. Phil Dorsett has been good in spurts. Josh Gordon appears to be injured. So I think it's a case of we know what the Patriots are going to do. If it gets down to the goal line or short area, they'd prefer to give it to Sony Michel than trust Tom Brady to keep doing quarterback sneaks, I think. So, yeah.
My flex is the aforementioned Mohamed Sanu. He's 4,000. As you stole it really because you've just mentioned it. I was going to say, because he's playing the Seahawks. Why would I pick him? No, he's not. He's playing the Browns. He knows the division. For those of you with long memories, I know he's been in the NFC South, but he used to be in the AFC North. I like Mohamed Sanu. Always have. I think he'd be a good possession receiver, and let's be honest, anything's better than what they've got at the moment, as that isn't very good.
And plus, let's be fair, there is zero chance between now and the end of the season that Mohamed Sanu hasn't attempted at least 3 passes.
Well,
Zero chance.
Let's be honest, he's now got the best passer rating on the team. Just straight facts for you there.
Finally, the Patriots have a quarterback.
Exactly, Neil. Exactly. Lucky them. Neil, who's your defence and special teams?
Jacksonville Jaguars, 2,900. They're playing the Jets. The Jets quarterback sees ghosts.
So, he does. I haven't necessarily got a problem with him saying it. I probably have a problem with the ESPN posting it. But then again, ESPN can be like, F you NFL, you keep on giving me these crap games, so screw you, I'll do what I want. And also I'll put Booger on. But what I would say is that, like, he was good the week before. So is it just that he just came up against Bill Belichick and he's a wizard against quarterbacks who have been in the league less than 2 years? Or is it something fundamentally wrong? I
just wonder. I don't think he meant ghosts. I think it was just. I understand what he meant. I think he just meant, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
They're confusing me. But because the football vernacular, the phrase "seeing ghosts" means you're flustered. It's unfortunate. I don't think he meant it. I don't think he meant it to come across in the way that the football vernacular implies it. I think he just meant, they're confusing me.
I think what happened was he spent a game, the first half, getting beaten up. And then they stopped beating him up. And he was like flinching. Do you know what I mean? He's flinching, expecting to get beat up, and it didn't happen. I don't know, it's natural, I guess. And the problem should be, why is Gase not protecting him? But that's a different conversation.
I mean, it's almost as if we should remember that he's only 3 weeks removed from a very serious illness, and his spleen is still a risk.
Yeah, true.
Just a thought.
Neil. My defense and special teams is the Seattle Seahawks. They're playing the Atlanta Falcons, and as we speak, although it's looking less and less likely, at one point yesterday when I did this team, there was a high possibility that they were going to face Matt Schaub. Instead, they're going to face a gimpy Matt Ryan. So although Matt's played well this season, I do expect him to make a few mistakes and the Seahawks to capitalise. So they're 2,800. Neil, let's quickly run through our teams. So who's your quarterback?
It is Kyler Murray.
So my quarterback was Teddy Bridgewater. If he doesn't start, I will play Matthew Stafford. Who's your running back 1, Neil?
Christian McCaffrey.
I've got Leonard Fournette. Who's your running back 2?
Leonard Fournette.
I've got Josh Jacobs, wide receiver 1.
John Brown.
I've got Tyler Lockett, wide receiver 2.
DK Metcalf.
I've got John Brown, wide receiver 3.
Kenny Stills.
I've got Chris Godwin, tight end.
The best Dallas in the NFL, Goddard.
I'm not sure you're in a position to say that after last week, but I understand the thought process.
Watch me.
Mine is TJ Hawkinson. Who's your flex?
Sony Michel.
I've got Mohamed Sanu. And who's your defense and special teams, Neil?
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Neil, mine is the Seahawks. Neil, where can people catch you for the rest of the week?
At Twitter, on Twitter, at EndUp13. The usual stuff this week has come out. The 5 stats to know, number fire, the wide receiver report for RotoViz, and my tight end streamers also for RotoViz. Just a quick one. Adam Thielen has been ruled out of Thursday Night Football, so I already had Kyle Rudolph as a streamer. He's available in about 75% of leagues. Without Adam Thielen playing against Washington and Kirk Cousins' revenge match, then Kyle Rudolph is an even more attractive streaming option than he already was.
I know I always hate picking players, especially in fantasy, on that Thursday night game. But if you've got Kirk Cousins, I've got to think he's a must start this week. I have Cousins and Diggs in our Dynasty League. And with Thielen out, I'm a little bit excited about the amount of points that could come my way.
Little bit of weave comes out.
A little bit. I am at Mainz 7. I'm devastated this week as I went 2-1 in the touchdown 3 last week. The loss was the San Francisco 49ers, who I picked at -9.5.
Playing at Buckley Hill.
At 3-0, just were on the goal line and went 3 and out, and then kicked a field goal, and then kicked another field goal to win 9-0. There you go. That's why people shouldn't gamble. Just in case anybody was wondering, that's why you don't do it. New one coming up this week, and we'll see if we can get to 3-0 for a week. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. We hope you enjoy week 8. We will see you on the other side. These top guys are out.